Welcome everyone. Welcome to this another episode of Homo Sapien podcast, in which we are having Nikhil after so long. Now we are here and we're going to talk about study abroad opportunities. So thank you so much, Nikhil, for doing this.
It's a great pleasure. So, but yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, hoping for a really good conversation. Let's start with your story and specifically part of your story, jahan pe you got inspiration to start foreign admits. Like तो starting from the point where you believe कि हाँ यार ये point था जहाँ से थोड़ा सा ये idea आना start हुआ. So what encouraged you?
True. So, Telek, I'm going to give a very brief background. Where do I come from and who am I? So, I come from a low middle class family in Kolkata, born and brought up in Kolkata, had seen the typical middle class life that I would say 70-80% of the Indian Janta are seeing it. And I was one of those kids who was really passionate about education. And because we knew that we don't have money, so we need to study well to be able to get something good in our lives. And that's, I think, is one of the trigger points for me getting attracted to education at a very early, I would say class 3 4. From there I had always been passionate about education कि भाई पढ़ाई करना बहुत जरूरी है और साइंटिस्ट बनना रिसर्चर बनना all those things are very inspirational. I was never driven about money those days, and name and value was something वो एक इनेट तरीके से आता था, भले ही बचपना था कि भाई रिसर्चर बनना है, देश का नाम रोशन करना है, परिवार का नाम रोशन करना है. एंड इट वाज नॉट अ प्रेशर फॉर मी, इट वाज एक्चुअली अ मैटर ऑफ प्राउड फॉर मी. So I was one of those kids who actually fought with their parents to get into an IIT, and luckily I got in, I would say, with hard work. So, and I think first second year ki baat hogi, it was like around the mid of first and second year I had went to an internship and was doing research internship. Luckily I got at IIT Bombay, and therein I think I met a couple of really good researchers. And उस time पे I found out a lot of these IIT Bombay, not specifying a particular name here as such, but let's say any top university researcher in India, they were struggling to write good research papers and all. And happens to be they were not well trained in terms of doing the research in some of the other ways. So me coming as a curious kid was just trying to see the problem from a different eye. Okay, that how they are facing problem and how I should not be facing problem. And that's where I found, I think, the first baby step, which I think 6 7 years later formed, the first foundation of foreign admits. So there I started a small company called Edit Engine, which was into editing of research papers and resumes, cover letters and all. It was nothing but a brainchild of what's problem I was seeing in my lab and in the neighborhood labs. And I was good with English. I had some basic understanding of my researches. All I needed to do was literature editing. And that's where I found worth. And we did a company for almost a year. I learned so much about research papers, theses, books, articles, and whatever researchers write. And that's where I found the interest in doing research, because I found the field to be really interesting. And research is something which is way more challenging than anything in usual. So I think my focus was always been, pursue something which is very hard for anyone or everyone to do it. So that if you do it, it kind of become legacy. And that's how I became IITian in my entire family. Until date, I'm the only IITian, I would say.
Okay.
That's I enjoy the privilege. So I think that was the first, interaction of me into world of research, which got me interested into education.
Right.
Now, why foreign education? So I think I will fast forward this. When I could not go abroad in 5 years of my IIT days, though I always wished, and I have sent a lot of my friends, alumni, alma mater abroad by helping them with their cover letters, SOPs, resume. So I knew the processes from the very start, that how do you write the cover letter, how much time you spent in applying to the professors and all. So I knew all those methods and I did try for myself, but I didn't have a very good pointers. So that was the first bottleneck. When I managed to get first not research, but a social media internship in US, I was working from here. And that's where I got my first baby step into the world of career in the post graduation space. So that internship, again, it's a very funny story. I would give all credits to LinkedIn.
Okay.
One blog post got viral overnight, and I became, I would say, media sensation for at least 100,000 people.
Okay.
So, and that was into career and this thing, education space. So the original author of that blog post from which where I curated it
Uh-huh.
actually loved my concept. And later on, he offered me an internship in social media and all, which I learned and self-taught. And I could meet a lot of, high qualified educators and business folks, including the top folks in the education space in US. That's where I understood there's a big difference between Indian education system,
Mhm.
the way
Mhm.
they've been pursuing, and in terms of post graduation journey,
Right. Right.
and the foreign education system. So because in IITs we used to see, or in any Indian colleges, we used to see masters are not getting that kind of a respect or worth. MTech is something, oh, someone has not cleared IIT, they are doing MTech just to get a badge of IIT. That is a very
Yes.
common notion that BTech used to have against
Not was,
MTech.
it is true as well.
I think, yeah, it is also at many places, and this should be removed because
Yes.
our master's education system could be, predominantly improved, right?
Absolutely.
But that's not happened at that point of time when I was there. So, and I think when I was doing my PhD, it all came because of really high quality and timely mentorship. I give huge credit to the relevant mentors in my life, whom I approached, whom I found out, whom I networked, or who even came to me accidentally in my lives. They helped me get a very, very good perspective about what I want to do in my career.
Hmm.
So I never had to follow the rat race. I never had to sit in the placements for force, by force to get that job. Everything happened to me just like a fluid. I never had to feel for, that, yeah, I'm working hard, but I never had to strive hard for this because it
Hmm.
eventually gonna come. So when I remember getting day one placements and getting maximum placements in my college and then not going for it. So
Okay.
it was against the tide again. But I think PhD was again very challenging, and I got a full funded PhD in three reputed universities in US, Canada, and Australia. I ended up picking Australia, again, right mentorship at that point of time.
Okay.
What mattered to me was very important, that in PhD, usually professors matter more than the university,
Yes.
because it's a professor's merit that's going to help you, nurture you, and grow you. Okay. So I think when I was doing my PhD, I again hit upon, I think, something very interesting and not so good. The status of research in India. And when I went abroad for a very short stint for a conference, I met almost like 1,000 people, international students.
Okay.
It was one of the conference by Howard University in Australia. So I made most out of that by networking with most of them. And I was very curious that why they are studying abroad. That just
Hmm.
came to me. I
Hmm.
could not go abroad, but why they are choosing and paying so much money? Because for
Hmm.
me, everything was on scholarship. So I never feel the pressure
Okay,
of
wait, this
paying
is during
back.
IITs, right?
Yes, this is during IIT Bombay after my graduation, during my PhD,
Yeah.
when I went to Australia. So I think I networked with 700 people approximately out of those 1,000. What I understood was two, three major points. The Southeast Asian usually want to escape their culture barrier,
Yes.
and that's why they used to go and study abroad.
Yes.
For Indians, it was good quality of lifestyle, a good quality of job, better pay, and probably immigrate to a better destination and never come back.
Basically,
So
better
that is the
quality of life.
usual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So few Indians only wanted to come back, few didn't want.
Hmm.
But the major problem most of them faced is they never knew what they have to do in this university where they have landed. They are
Hmm.
still figuring out. Some have even been, I would say, misguided, giving wrong hopes and false expectations. And that is where, it kind of pinched me.
Hmm.
As a student to student, it really, I was always, very close to the career option, because
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know a
Hmm.
good career can change the entire perspective of a family,
Absolutely.
can change
Absolutely.
the entire family finances and everything, right?
Yes.
And a bad career option can also do the thing in the negative way.
Yes.
So I think that was the thing, and I felt like we in IITs and premium institutions. So I used to think like, I was always being blessed, and a lot of my friends have been doing phenomenally well. What was the common thing in
Hmm.
between us and the other guys who are not? They all are hardworking. All they didn't get is the right kind of inspiration and guidance,
Hmm.
because processes are very simple. And on internet, everything is available for free. What is not available is my own experience, my own journey, and my own understanding of what things to be done. And if I can teach someone or educate someone prior hand, they would be doing less mistakes. They could be able to fast, speed up the process,
Yes.
and can reach to their destination with less, cost, less hassle, less mistakes. And that is what I feel mentorship is all about. So, the whole idea was I used to guide, a lot of my alumni and alma mater, in IITs. And slowly I felt there is a need by other colleges, and which was actually a more genuine need. In IIT, we still have a great alumni network.
Yes.
But in other colleges, unfortunately, they don't. I would have wished that they would have, but this was not possible for them. So that is where we felt ki, people do need access to good quality of mentorship.
Yes.
And when I say mentorship, I never intend a sales call. I always intend a very genuine, candid advice. It could be liked and it could be disliked also. That is fine. But you need to hear the truth. What a person with some experience, where you want to be, I might be standing here where someone wants to be.
Right.
So I know what are the things that I faced, which the other person may not. So it's my advice to give, okay, if you're going this way for this particular application or this particular university or this particular country, you might need to work in this fashion, or you might need to explore these other pathways. So most of the students, and India being a huge population, awareness itself is a big problem to solve.
It's a
for
challenge.
most companies.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we got really interested. And we really felt that, every day I'm getting at least 10 to 20 LinkedIn messages from students, and accidentally met my old friend on LinkedIn. And we were good friends, and we just happened to do the similar things in different ways in our lives. And we clubbed our forces. That's how I met my co-founder. And we started the company in 2018, June. So I think that was the time when internet was booming and access to information was becoming easier.
Yeah, Jio was becoming mainstream.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, people could now access information easily.
Yeah.
So that is the thing. And people now could have access to other people through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So that was my main motive. And when me and Ashwini, my co-founder, were discussing about this, that LinkedIn is there. Why do we need another LinkedIn?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we kind of heard from customers only that, hey, I'm trying to reach you out from past 7 weeks. You haven't accepted my request. I said, okay, let me check. So I don't know, because I'm getting hundreds of requests.
Yes.
And I don't know whether, let's say, that person is genuine enough for a conversation or not.
Right.
So that was a bigger problem with LinkedIn. Not everyone knows how to use LinkedIn, because there's an add note request also there. Not everyone would be comfortable in spending their time with other people. So I think when we started Foreign Admits, these are the things which, inspired us to do something differently in the things where, things are always there. Mentors are there. People are there who want to guide. So people and students both are there. What they didn't had is a proper connect, someone to vet them, someone to guide them. And at that point of time, I think we were the first company or set of companies who were doing mentorship in education space. Because we have seen a lot of mentorship in the job space and all, in terms of the career and jobs and all, but no one into the choosing the career, picking the right college and all. And there were very limited ones which were booming in IIT JEE admission guidance. Because I was also another part of the IIT JEE admission community group who used to guide the incoming students. So I knew that if this concept works for this set of audience, it surely would work for another set of audience who want to go abroad. But there was hardly any platform which I could see which could make mentorship as simple as that. Let's say Ishan is there on the platform. I know as a student that Ishan is going to mentor me if I need to connect to Ishan. I can just see the Ishan's timing Monday, morning 10 to 11, he's free. I'm going to book a call. I'm going to pay a commitment fee, probably like a $15, $20, $25, whatever it is. And Ishan knows that I am coming for guidance. Ishan can see my profile and see all my questions and can prepare for it. And we have a call of 45 minutes. So I wanted to make something very simple and approachable for people because the world is already very complicated. We needed to simplify the conversations. And I think all of these led to foundation of the first thought of Foreign Admits. But the name was very trivial. It was an engineer's chosen name, no design, nothing, very simple. Foreign Admissions, Foreign Admits, that's it. And the vision was always global.
That's really I've known. So there are 2-3 adjectives that are coming into my mind. One is like it's really inspirational, and you really have that engineering mindset. You look at things with trying to find a problem and where to solve it, and that's really something that I wish I had when I was like doing in my first year, second year, and we are not prepared for it. That's one. But anyway, the point being is your story is from the starting you were kind of aiming for something like you eventually did in 2018. You
Yeah.
were finding like starting from the first or second year. That's really something that I don't know, I haven't seen in a lot of founders that I've been having in the channel, or been talking like like offline, online, wherever you say that I've been interacting with them. Not just this is not the backstory of foreign animals, this is actually your own story as well, and I'm pretty much sure Ashwini would have his own set of stories leading to the same point as well, right? So
Absolutely.
that's it. And now coming to like the value giving process to someone who is actually watching this with the hope of you mentoring him for, let's say, next 10 to 15 minutes straight to the answer, and I'll be that person, I'll be the puppet. So let's say I'm in high school. Let's start from there. So you can guide me, like if I'm a high school student, and or probably I'm a bachelor student, or already I'm a master student and I'm looking for PhDs, or like there can be various stages. But even before that, you said that one of the thing that struck me when you were telling about the story, that when you went to Australia for the very first time, people didn't even know what are they actually doing there. So what are the questions that one should actually ask oneself even before deciding that, okay, I want to study abroad, or something like that?
Okay. I think there are very fundamentals which our education system or our society usually suppresses us to ask ourselves. Yeah, and I've grown in a family. I would say I'll be lucky because of the constraints I had. I was brought up in a more constraint driven environment, which always asked me why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I don't have multiple attempts to do in my life. Because every penny is costly, every time is expensive. And when you understand the value of time, money, and efforts, that's where you become cautious. But in our early days, we don't know about all of these, right? We just do things. I would say 80%, not quoting on the exact number, but somewhere around that. There's a big percentage of people who are just neutral. Wherever you want to push them, they're just going to go. Wherever the trends go, they're going to go. So that questioning things was very difficult for most of the kids. And that's where the whole journey of choosing the right career path or a right education or a right profession comes in. Because what is right? Right can be different for me and different for someone else, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never pursued coding. I hated coding. And see, I'm hiring good engineers in my team, right? I'm still building products when there was zero coders in my team. And I could build a product and raise my first round without even writing a single line of code.
Right.
It doesn't matter that you have to be a coder to be able to do things. Same way, there are so many trending fields and people are just jumping into it. Just probably for the sake of better salaries or better ego satisfaction, or to just cope up with the trends of the peers. But that is where, as a kid, one had to question them. I had been passionate about IIT. Someone can say, "Oh, Nikhil, you are also following the same thing." No, it's not like that way. When I was pushing for IIT, I knew that IIT is one of the difficult exams in India. Okay.
Yes.
And it is going to lead me to somewhere in chemical because I really liked chemistry and colors and all.
Okay.
Accidentally, I landed up into mining thanks to the IIT rankings, but it didn't stop me in pursuing what I really liked. From there onwards, I started liking petroleum and I got good mentorship. So now coming back to the main question about where to start. The usual journey for a kid can even start from as early as 7, 8 nowadays, because the world is becoming competitive. I'm seeing a lot of parents, NRIs to, big lawyers to even general middle class parents, coming to us for their kids, like they're in 6th, 7th, and they are in the FOMO. The parents are actually driven by FOMO. The more important thing is, it's all about parenting and right kind of guidance as a kid, as a character. What kind of values do you take up? kids should learn about communication, expressing themselves.
Right.
There are multiple things as a fundamental education which are never given in the schools.
Right.
You would be given thousands of books, kilos of books in your bag, but then nothing very fundamental which you're going to use in your life.
Right.
And communication, be it verbal, written, or any forms of communication, is very critical for any kid to learn. Same way, mathematics or finance. We have been talking a lot in the industry about kids learning finance, kids learning coding, kids learning problem solving. Yes, all these things are good. Okay, but not for just the sake of getting a certification or a degree, but for sake of understanding how things work and utilizing in their lives. So what we do from class, I would say 7 to 12, we make them go through multiple things. It's not like every kid is going to be through coding. Okay, but a kid should understand what coding is, how to code. You would be able to pick up something which is interesting for you. So we follow one of the very interesting principle. I'm forgetting the name. This is a scientific theory where you kind of try and test multiple things in small packets and kind of explore your interest, where your interest lies. Okay, and if there is an innate interest, then you try to get deeper into it, not broaden it in the upfront, and then you kind of see the value, how much consistent you are in those interests, and how much revenue or self-satisfaction both can you have with that interest or passion. I know I'm mentoring a kid who is great in VFX and animations and cinematography, preparing for IITJ. And the kid almost dropped IITJ plan 2 days before. His father is like, I can send my kid abroad. IITJ is there, but the societal pressure is huge. I had to literally counsel that, whom are you afraid of? If your kid is going to study, 3 years or 4 years of bachelor's in animations and cinematography, he can do a better career. And if he is so passionate, he might end up getting some really good scholarships.
Absolutely.
So the education cost is going to be affordable that way. You can plan it, and he would have a better satisfactory career rather than being pushed for 4 years into IIT. Though again, not against IIT anything, but it's all about personal choices, right? Absolutely. So rather being pushed 4 years into an IIT and then he's again going for VFX and animation, it doesn't make sense. He's wasting a kid's career who would want to get into an IIT by himself getting into an IIT if the chances hits. Right?
Yeah.
So that's all about career choice, because if a career you're not liking, you're picking up, you're taking space of someone who would want to get into this. So that is again one of the things. So kids at Foreign Habits usually go through multiple, I would say, micro cohorts or micro test, what we call it. We call it basically litmus test, where we check the signals or indicators, just like chemistry, the engineer's mind.
Yeah.
So we call it litmus test, where we check the interest of the kids, make them go through multiple things so that they also become versatile in terms of their knowledge and awareness, how the functions happen. Once all of these things are done, which is again a long process, there is no shortcut. We clearly mentioned the parents, like, you cannot expect your kids to become someone, really big shot in just 3 months or 6 months. Absolutely. It doesn't work that way. Right. Certain skills takes time. So I think that's where the kids usually prepare up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And by the time they hit class 10th or 11th, that is where the ideal timing of bachelor's preparation begins for the admissions for a broad bachelor's. Okay. Because when you're in 10th, you're gonna start preparing for your SATs. If you're going for US, though many universities in US are not taking SATs, but there are few really good ones. They do take SATs, and SATs is also a way to showcase your aptitude. It's nothing but an aptitude test. So if you're securing a little lower marks in your high school, your SAT marks can actually help in your admission selection criteria. Okay, but again, a disclaimer: marks is not the only thing that is going to decide your application. The reason I'm saying that upfront, because I know the people who are listening to this gonna be getting obsessed about the marks. When you are taking admissions abroad versus India, there's a big difference in how you are evaluated. There are multiple parameters. If I have to name like 5-7, your scores, your extracurriculars, your passion, your projects, your internships, if you have done your volunteering, your recommendation letters, your essays. There are so many things. Essays is not like you give to content writer and you're going to write some flowery language and all. It needs to showcase why you're doing this, what made you do this, why this university or this course is going to help you, what in future you want to do that. So there are so many aspects that comes into this, because they want to give opportunity to the child who may not be academically as smart, but has a vision or has a overall profile which can be suitable for him becoming a better alumni or alumnus for the college. So I think 10 to 12th is the usual timeline in the, I would say, relaxed way for anyone who are going abroad for bachelor's to prepare and to ensure that they get something really aspirational. Because if you want something aspirational, you need to put in time. Else, the ideal timeline is 11th. The moment you get into 11th, you're going to start preparing for SATs. And 12th, you want to give SATs and apply, because the application process is going to take around 6 to 9 months, including the essays, your tests, and everything. And once you've applied, ideally, the application starts from August 1st to November last for Common App, which is a US focused application portal. Just like we have VFS for visas, for US admissions and some universities, they follow Common App. And for other universities, you can start by August and it could end even in late April also. But I always recommend my students, if you're going to go for something good and if you want to get scholarships, by November, December, you have to finish everything. Nothing beyond November, December is good, or I would say easy. So the more delay you do it, the harder it becomes for you to get admissions and even scholarships, because those things are more on the first come first serve basis. Okay, so that is how you're gonna balance it out. And I think and the cost wise we're gonna discuss later on. So that is for the undergrad. So basically for high school going for undergrad, similar timeline is for grad also, 1 to 1.5 years before. So ideal time we follow in IIT is like, if you're the moment you're entering third year, that's where you're going to start looking whether you want to go abroad or whether you are not. And there are certain questions you can answer yourself to be able to identify whether you want to go abroad or not, because abroad education is not suitable for everyone.
Absolutely.
There is nothing in the world.
What are those, some of the questions, like if you can point out?
Yes, absolutely. Because there's nothing in the world which is suitable for everyone. There has to be something personalized, right? So number one thing, if you're financially on a very, very difficult situation, which happens, I have seen people who are really meritorious, but financially they're extremely difficult. For them, it is all about your personal will and journey. If you can, because there would be certain tests that you might need to write. Okay, that's going to cost you 20, 30,000. I think around 20,000 you for the English test, that might cost you 18 to 20, and 13 to 15. And if you're writing GRE, it would be around $250, which is again around 20,000 rupees. So these tests you need to nail in the first attempt, else again you have to pay the fees. Then university application fees is also there. If you're aiming for US, you may get some waivers in some university, but not all universities are going to give you waivers. Okay, and if you're going for Germany, yes, you would get some waivers. So there are many costs which is included. Your visa cost, your flight cost, no one's going to pay you easily, right? But again, I'm being proven wrong by our own mentors and our own students who have not paid anything and still went abroad with full funding. But to do that, you need to put in a lot of hard work. And it's all about how much effort and time you're willing to put. Because there are three things: effort, money, and time. And you can do only two. So that is how people balance, right? So, and number two is, if you're okay, coming back, or if you're not okay, settling in the foreign culture, then again, study abroad may be not a suitable thing. A lot of people are, nations, homesick, I would say. They are more like, I cannot stay abroad with foreigners or something, the cultural barriers are there. So then again, it's a difficult thing. And people who have never been abroad, they're scared. I would highly recommend take it as an adventure trip, probably go for a conference outside, experience abroad, and then come back and then decide whether you want to study abroad or not. Because that is one of the things that kind of changes many people's perspective. So I think these are the few things from my understanding is important. And there are many notions. You go abroad, there's no placement team. Yes, there's no placement team, but they kind of prepare you in a holistic way if you're following the things so that you can get self-placed. Because they believe in concept that you would be able to place yourself in future also, not the campus placements. So I think these are the few notions and few questions that you need to ask yourself whether you are going to study abroad or not. Certainly, there is a better quality of education. All these things you can expect. There's a serious cultural shocks in terms of education and the lifestyle you can expect. Cost-wise also, there are many shocks. So if you're open to those new things, then you should study abroad. If you're not, probably taking a small trip abroad to any country where you want, maybe 3-4 days exploring them would be better option. to understand and take a final check on this.
So really detailed answer. Thank you so much for that. So basically, if I boil it down, there are few questions that one needs to ask himself or herself. Are you open to actually go to a different culture where probably your name will not be pronounced correctly, and the food that you are very much used to, the people, the family that you are very much used to be around, that they will not be there. You might have to cook your own food. You might, like, most of us has had to cook their own food. Nobody, like, most of us can't afford eating outside every day. If you're having that, okay, I'll go there, I'll explore, we'll see how that goes, and there is a cost associated with all the dreams, and if I'm able to come up with that, and you probably live there for at least 2-3 years, that would be really nice, and then I can come back. So have to think in long term as well, because what are your future goals as well, like, that should be there in the mind. But what's the ideal time? Do you think one should go for bachelor's, or one should aim for the master's degree at least? What's the ideal time according to your experience? Of course, you will be having a lot of people. There is
My
no
answer would
one
be
answer.
very bullish.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my answer would be very bullish.
Please.
Until unless there is a need of a master's, why do you want to do a master's? If your bachelor's abroad can suffice you those dreams, that's it. I've seen parents who are just forcing their kids to for the bachelor's, and again they're gonna do a master's abroad. There's no point. Why do you want to do a degree, which is not known or not planned for? I never did any MBA or anything because I never needed it. And that's how I think most of the people who are really successful, what I've learned from them, you're ready for a degree when you really feel that, okay, this is where my knowledge education gap, is limited. Now I need to go back to the whiteboards and probably learn again new things and gonna build my career. If your bachelor's is decent, I think you have enough opportunities more than the current Indian bachelors. Foreign bachelors have usually more opportunities. You can excel there. Trust me, if I could, and again, I'm comparing everything to myself because I feel I represent a majority of the, hardworking Indian middle class. And that's where I feel, and I have been a 69% guy also. So I'm not a 90% or anything as such. It's just hard work. So
I was just saying that's very specific.
No, I think people love numbers. That's how you have to give them perspectives. Yeah. So, I think most of the time, when you're looking for your bachelor's, again, bachelor's is a little bit more expensive in terms of your cost, in terms of your duration, and in terms of your cultural exchanges. Yeah. So if you're going for bachelor's in US, you might end up spending, 80 lakhs to 1.2 or 1.5 crores also. Okay. Yes. If you're going for bachelor's in Germany, even if it's a public university, you might need to learn German in many cases. In few cases, you can be okay with English, yes, but you still need to learn German for socializing, and your living cost would be at least 10 lakhs per annum. That again, you might have to do a part-time job to be able to recoup that cost. So there is a cost. So foreign education is preferred for those who can do upfront investment for a long-term return. Okay, because there is no short-term return in this particular kind of education. Yeah, that's one thing. Number two is, I would say, if you are able to do bachelor's, definitely do bachelor's, and try and not to do masters after that, because your bachelor's should be able to suffice it. And probably after doing bachelor's, make enough finances and be at a right fit position so that you don't have to, worry for doing your master's or MBA. You become self-independent. If you are not able to do bachelor's, don't worry. You do your bachelor's here, perform really good, and get a great master's outside. And I always recommend go for full funded, go for partially funded, or at least get some funding. If not, probably go for a good university, and that's where you can build your career. Don't settle for anything less unless you feel that you have nothing left. Okay. So I think there is no straight answer because it depends on person's individual.
I agree to that. How to actually select a desired country? Is it based on the opportunities that are there? Is it based on the language, the different language that we are going to learn? Is it based on, of course, funds matter. So what things to be considered there?
Okay. So there are few things, honestly, in picking the country. Though I would keep a disclaimer that every country if you're there in the top 10 or 20%, every country gives you that kind of a good opportunity in most places.
Okay.
But there are certain barriers in UK and European countries where they have a visa issue thing where they're gonna prefer you if they have not been able to find a proper European or a UK talent. Okay. So that is where the job kind of sometimes gets difficult. Not many people know about it, so I'm giving a upfront disclaimer about it. Still, they have a very high employment rate for Indian candidates or Southeast Asian candidates because our talent is really good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number two, if you're picking up a particular country, you need to focus on what kind of finances are you open to upfront invest in. Because if you're looking at US, UK, Canada, Australia, these are the countries where upfront investment might be high. Okay. But there can be a better returns in the long term. Number three, or number two, second part could be Europe. If you're looking for a lower expense, Europe is one of the best places, less discovered, but again, very supportive. But the challenge comes in the language.
Yeah.
You might be open to learn a German, Italian, Dutch, or Swedish, any specific language, or Norwegian or Finnish. Okay. And these are very good countries where there is engineering growth, there is research growth is there. Number three is the indicator of industry, where the industries are majorly flourishing. Those are the kind of countries that you should be in, okay? Or at least should be working. Okay. So that is where, let's say, Norwegian engineers in civil are best in the world. Okay. Because Norway is famous for civil, and they even get opportunities in US and all. Doesn't mean that US is not good. We have Purdue. In fact, Ashwini, my co-founder, is a grad from Purdue. We have Arizona State University. So many other good universities are there, but those are different in patches. So you need to do subject-wise ranking and subject-wise researches on which universities you want to pursue. The third thing, as I said, is the language barrier. You want to go for an English speaking nation versus a non-English speaking nation or a hybrid nation on that note. So these are the major preferences that you would need. The minor preferences could be weather. So Canada, if someone is not very comfortable with cold, Alaska and USA and Canada, apart from Vancouver, are not suitable for them because they are a very extremely chilly environment. Right? So these are few other minor parameters. Another major parameter comes into the visa perspective. Like how long you want to stay. You want to go for an immigration, long-term work visas. US may be a very challenging option in that case. Canada and UK have been more PR-friendly nations, and that's why they have been able to attract more talents for a longer period of time. Because they are able to retain those people as immigrants. So immigrant-friendly nation is also very critical on those notes. And I think the fifth one could be again a minor but major to some people is the taxes. Europe has very high taxes. US has shared variations of taxes. Canada has not a very high taxes. It's a suitable tax, I would say. So their taxes can also be important because of the pay. US has the highest pay in terms of the global payments. Europe has a lower pay, I would say. But then Europe has a base pay also. Below that, you can't pay. So you are always secured. In Europe, people are going to throw you out of the country. They are very supportive. But in US, I cannot say that. You might be deported. So there are different challenges that are there in each of these countries and different merits also. So you need to know which merit's going to suit you and which challenge you can adopt.
That's a very specific answer. And also, if someone, there is a criteria of having that free public health facilities in Canada and countries like that. So those can also be considered if someone wants to, if someone is thinking of living there, like, spending their life in
Absolutely.
getting a PR.
So that's what we call it as an immigrant-friendly country. Like Canada and Australia, if you're going for PR, your healthcare cost, your education cost can become next to negligible. So that is where they kind of, help you. And abroad, medical costs are very high. So you need to be very cautious on those things also.
All right. So these are the long form answers. If we can shorten it down in very quick words or something like that. So let's say starting from 11th, if someone starts, so does 12th or eventually the school marks matter? Or
I'll tell you exact 6 or 7 pointers that someone
would be
studying
perfect.
in 11th needs.
That would be perfect.
Number one, take a psychometric assessments, understand your personality. Okay. There are certain other career assessments based on ONET. You can probably pick those up. Number two, whatever the career assessment tells you what kind of professions you are good, add whatever interest that you already have. Do certain online courses or projects on those. It's going to take you 3 to 6 months of marathon on this. Once you find anything interesting where you forget your time and you feel this is a profession which is going to boom, there are reports online, read about it. Based on the if you're learning, let's say biomimicry, okay, and if you're seeing that biomimicry has a future, go ahead and find out the universities which are good in biomimicry and build your profile according to that. Do not follow whatever media and everything is saying. Forget everything. Focus on what you're skilled at. Focus on where the target universities are. Probably going to make a list of top 50 or top 100 universities in biomimicry and categorize the university in terms of expensive universities with scholarship, expensive university without scholarship, and low expense universities with funding and all. So that's how you can put in the target in terms of finances. Forget the ranking because your top 100 are good, and then put in the order of top 10. These are the aspirations that I would want to try, and then see what are the requirements that the test scores and all everything have. Ideally, SAT is gonna take you 3 months if you are really good. 2 to 3 months. If you're not, probably 6 months. Depends. 2 to 6 months is the usual timeline. And try to give mock SATs, mock IELTS or TOEFL whenever you are giving. I would highly recommend TOEFL if you're going for US, and even TOEFL is widely accepted all over the world. So you can always give TOEFL that way, and even IELTS and other exams like PTE or Duolingo and all. But depends on the number of universities accepting them. Okay. So when you're giving a test, first don't prepare for the test. Give the test, understand where you stand, and then start preparation. Most of the people usually miss this first step and spend a huge amount of time useless. Once you have done all of these, if you don't have the money, probably write to the university, ask them, put your candidature, get an application fee. It is a hack. Not many people know, but people do it. So once you have gotten the application fees, by July, everything needs to be done in terms of your test scores, your transcripts and all. And then you start the applications in August to October, you finish all your applications, your essays, prompts, everything. And by November, you are done and dusted. By December to January, you will be getting your admissions. Speak to the loan companies the moment you have applied to the university. Give them the list that, hey, these are the universities that have applied. What are the usual loan criteria? Get your loans checked. Because if you're not getting a loan, it will be difficult for you to study in many cases. So find out the right lender, or probably visit us, not again a promotion, but we help for free for loan, visas and everything on those. So, speak to your seniors or speak to the loan companies, get your loan sanctioned, get to the visas immediately and fly off. So it hardly takes 6 months of marathon to quickly finish everything, starting from June to November. That's it.
You actually covered a lot of aspects, and a next question that I was going to ask is being answered in this one only. So, so I'll just quickly jump off to the last section that I decided. So there has been some changes after COVID, of course. So what after COVID? I have heard and I've seen websites as well. So UK and Canada, Australia, these countries are actually asking immigrants to come in, like more and more immigrants to come in. Probably I could be wrong, but you can tell better. Like what after COVID? How do you look at that?
I think COVID, in a way, have exponentially increased the international students' growth market because number one, population shortages there. There's a shortage of workers. Belgium officially published that they are facing the massive shortage in decades that they have never faced. Europe entirely is going through overall as a shortage. UK is going through a shortage. If you are into medicine, I've seen MBBS and medicinal fields have grown exponentially. Biotech, life science, medicine, pharmacy. These are the fields which are globally in demand after pandemic because people have realized there are so many doctors. Rest in peace, their souls have died, and there's a huge shortage of doctor. And doctor takes time in production. If I'm talking in mechanical terms, it's going to take 5 to 10 years to become a doctor. And then if you die out of COVID, then again, there need to be someone to replace you. That's how the world mechanics going to work. So there's a huge welcoming by the countries when you're looking for medical fields. Same way technology. After COVID, everything in the OEM and automobile and many other manufacturing industry have been shut down. To operate them, you need to have digital transformation. So courses like digital transformations and tech has boomed. They have like ballooned up so fast that people could not even keep up the demand. Same with MBA and management consulting, because people need different kind of strategies to deal with COVID. So overall, there's a huge growth that we have seen despite the plummet in 2020 market and in the jobs also. That is the main thing. The reason MBA accelerated hirings are there, you would have seen the admission percentage has gone record low because the seats are limited. More people are applying because the more jobs are coming up. So that is one of the things I would highly recommend if you are there in this era. Ride on this wave. Do not think COVID is a wave. Probably you want to surf on this wave and you would get a good amount of placements. But yes, be cautious on the old school fields. The old school fields will not work or cut in. I've seen people, getting the top 25 universities and coming back to India unplaced. Because if you have picked up something really old school, it's not going to work it out. You have to think what's needed in this era and probably design or pick a degree relevant to it.
So I think that was a pretty good answer. One last thing before we wrap off. I think I am gonna reach out to you for my personal consultancies, all that stuff. But anyway, if someone wants to reach out to you for helping, website is better, or Instagram is better, or your email ID is better, what are the places that one can actually reach out to you?
We are pretty much active on Instagram and LinkedIn, and our website has chatbots where you can fill up the forms. Usually it takes us 2 days. Right now we are a little short staffed because unexpectedly many people have shown more love than expected, so which is great, and I keep welcoming that kind of a thing. And you can reach out to us on Instagram. We have a pretty active Instagram channel where we publish a good amount of insightful contents which will help you to learn and do things. And I personally monitor my Instagram channels, so I might be responding to you many of the occasions. So if not, there is another mentor. And again, most of the team members at Foreign Admits are international graduates or someone who is going abroad. We have around 1 to 2 team members whom we have sent right now with full funding abroad. So you would relate that every person is more crazy and passionate towards higher education because either they have experienced it or they want to experience it.
There is a lot to talk about apart from just going outside to you, your mindset, your entrepreneurial mindset. How do you actually come up with the solutions to the problem that you are actually coming up with? You observe one problem and you come up with a solution, and the kind of solution that you come up with, it's really fascinating for me. So probably we'll connect up later again for follow-up conversation. But thank you so much for this. This was really, really amazing. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks, yeah.